This is interesting and perhaps even a little worrying, particularly for the owner of a kind of a classic, myself, that classic car values, normally you just expect them to keep going up and up and up. And generally they have been shown to be good investments in terms of appreciating your money, although keeping in mind, as I'm finding with mine, that there are costs and expenses connected with the owning and running particularly of classic cars. So you have to keep that in mind. But aside from that, generally the overall value of them tends to keep going up. However, there are some indications that some of the cars, some classics, have actually lost value this year. So I'm going to be reading out some information from Hagerty, who are specialists in valuations of classic and older modern classic cars. And I think you might find this quite interesting.
A brown car guy.
Right, so Hagerty have been looking at a selection of cars that showed a notable downward movement. This is interesting, isn't it? Now, I do think, I'm reading this is a press release from Hagerty, and because of the type of cars that they're talking about, and because of, well, the nature of the press release, I do feel that it's an American-centric press release. But having said that, classic car prices are a global thing, you know, and it impacts everything. And of course, there's always a ripple effect. What happens in one market then impacts other markets as well. But anyway, this will be interesting not only for American viewers, but I think for global viewers as well. So they're seeing from blue chip to the affordable. We have our eyes out to see what's happening with these trends. And the first thing that they're looking at, which is a kind of an odd one, really, because it's very rare, particularly in this side of the Atlantic. The 1970 Plymouth Superbird shown the biggest fall for them at minus 24%. Minus 24%. Now, these cars are really crazy. If you've seen them, there's a picture I'll put on the screen. Massive wings, this kind of conical nose, which were add-ons to the Dodge Charger. Fundamentally, that's a Dodge Charger. It's a homologation special, was intended really for the track. Dodge built 505 of the Charger-based Daytonas in 1969, and Plymouth built 1,935 Road Runner-based Superbirds the following year. Those are the really popular ones. There's 2,000 of them. Also, the name's really cool, right? Road Runner Superbirds. Wow. Long aerodynamic nose, wasn't great for street driving, but these, you know, and that weird wing at the back. But then, you know, these really weren't for street driving, they're for drag racing, and, you know, they really are show cars. I mean, when they turn up, they're a huge presence and an incredible sight to behold. They're the most recognizable cars in the muscle car era, and they're sought after centerpieces for serious collectors. These cars are usually offered in fits and spurts on the public market, few and far between, in other words. But we witnessed over 20 offered in January alone. That's a lot. So yeah, that is a lot. And it's possible that too much of a good thing is what you have when you have prices coming down. I think that's primarily what has probably happened here, that there's been too many of them come onto the market. And that's a Maserati Gran Turismo, old school, nice, lovely to hear, V8. So yeah, I think that's probably what's happened. That because there's so many of them have suddenly come up, equates to poor sales, and therefore this has gone down, the prices have gone down. That doesn't mean the floor has officially fallen out of these cars. Further market observation, particularly of more typical individual sales spread over more time, needs to happen to confirm. However, this is a good indication that the top tier of the muscle car market has begun to wane. Now, if you have been following the muscle car market over the last decade, almost 2 decades actually, it's been skyrocketing. Ever since that sort of age of people who are really into those cars came, you know, were able to cash in their retirement funds and what have you, the prices of these things rocketed, and they stayed very, very high, and they're still very, very high for the best quality muscle cars that you can get out there. But what they're saying is that this could show an indication that that might be changing. And the next one can also kind of fit into that category. So this is a 1967 Chevrolet Corvette L88. They've seen a 19% drop in the value of this car. Now, they're talking about blue chip collector cars in the muscle car market, obviously. These are the best of the best. The most exclusive collectors in the hobby go for these cars. etc., etc. Now, the L88, right? 1967 vet. Now, to most of us, this just looks like a C2 Corvette. But the L88 was actually the best of the engines that were offered. In the form of RPO code L88, a 427 cubic inch big block made a conservatively rated 430 horsepower. They reckon it was up to as much as 500 horsepower, in fact. And you know, that was like, it was a $950 option at the time. It was the most powerful Corvette you could get. A bit like today's ZR1 and stuff like that, right? Only 20 were produced. Wow. And normally the costs are well into 7 figures. So why do they care about such a rare and unique car, even though the value has fallen by 19%? Well, the top market has implications that trickle down to the more affordable segments of the hobby. After years of little activity and sitting high in the market, 3 examples hit the market at the same time, posting weak numbers. This caused us to recommend an average of a 19% drop. Softening at the top of the 1960s American performance car indicates that we need to keep a close eye on other less exclusive Corvettes and muscle cars from this era. So again, the idea that muscle car prices might finally be beginning to fall, or steady at least. Sorry to interrupt. Are you enjoying the video? Well, make sure you've punched the like button. It helps. This one took me by surprise. A minus 16% drop in the 1979 to 1992 second generation Mercedes-Benz S-Class, the W126, my favorite S-Class by far. This is the car that I grew up witnessing when I was in Saudi Arabia, because everybody had to have that. In the top tier of cars, this was like at the top, you know. Introduced in the final months of 79. Ultimate in terms of reputation for fit finish, reliability, solid cars, absolutely like tanks, these things, you know. And you could get them diesels, V8s, V6s, all of them, you know. So, as they say, platform has long been revered and coveted by enthusiasts. Honestly, like if I had to have a Mercedes, probably the SEC version of this would be the one that I would want to go for. I think that that's the one to get. There's been an abundance of excellent lowish mileage cars hitting the market, and prices have been going up for quite a while now. But what they have found is that prices are settling back down. And this is especially true with the 6-cylinder models. While the V8 cars are still doing quite well, the direction is clear. So the market growth of the collector Mercedes from the 80s hasn't fully matured, so it only makes sense that some cars will be searching for a new equilibrium. I think what they're saying is that it's settling down, and the V8s, the really good V8s, they're still going to keep going up, I reckon, and I think they're saying that as well. But I think some of the more regular stuff is settling down, and that's probably pulled that overall price down. Next one, 1983 to 1990 Alfa Romeo Spider. Note, 1983 to 1990 Alfa Romeo Spider, minus 14%. That's the one with the weird bumpers and all the rest of it, not the delicate look of the original car. It's the more 80s car, which, to be honest, I confess, I actually quite liked it. I've always liked it. And, you know, for a while I considered one because they were affordable. They're not as affordable as they used to be, but they're still affordable. Not as widely coveted as other Italian models, but nonetheless important is what they say. So the Alfa Romeo Spider is of course a small roadster, the small sports car. Now the original was produced from 1966 to 1993. The original, you remember, the Spider is famous from certain movies and stuff like that. And you know, it's done really, really well for them. This was the biggest change that they had with the 1988 model. Oops, nearly tripped up there. Biggest change that they had. What's happening with the surface here? It's quite mottled. Now these cars have remained affordable entry into Italian sport motoring. Best examples were still under $30,000. The problem is that you're finding a good one. And I think this is what's happened here. This is what they reckon has happened here. Is that because these cars are relatively affordable, but some of them have deteriorated quite a lot. They are old Italian sports cars. And then when you look at the cost of the restoration, when that is so high, that then the buying price is so low, it kind of, you know, it sort of off balances. What I'm trying to say is that when you have a car, a classic car that's of a very high value, and you have to restore it, and the restoration cost is, say, 10, 15, 20% of the value of the car, you're like, okay, that's fine. When the restoration cost is, you know, 50, 60, 70% of the valuation of the car, it gives you pause for thought, particularly at this level. So this is why they're saying that, okay, the best examples I think will still do all right, but anything less, values are dropping. Next one also took me by surprise. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links. Or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does. 1995 to 2001, Honda or Acura Integra Type R has dropped by 13%. 13%. These cars are great. This was a car that was often regarded, is still regarded, I think. Oh, we're walking uphill now. It's still regarded, I think, as one of the best handling front-wheel drive cars ever. I mean, it was just one of the icons. Excellent handling, precise controls, an engine that effortlessly revs to the moon is what they've written here. So, what's happening with these? Japanese cars led by the Toyota Supra, Nissan Skyline GTR and the Acura NSX have gained wider acceptance as desirable collectors. Have you seen recently, and not related to this, but the Honda NSX that was owned by Ayrton Senna, allegedly is up for sale at £500,000. Wow, I've never seen an NSX up at £500,000. That's incredible. Perfect no-mile examples have commanded high prices back to the ITR, Integra Type R. One of them has hit $150,000. Wowzers, for an Integra Type R. But there's an increasing inventory when they've started to come in as they're 25 years old. So what's happening in America particularly, this is why I think this is very American orientated, is that, you know, there's been a change of law in there, and suddenly a lot of Japanese cars, desirable Japanese cars, have been allowed to be imported over there. So again, the increase in supply will put pressure on the prices. That's what they mean by Japanese origin cars, JDM stuff. So this is why I think this is a bit skewed, this one particularly for America, and I don't think necessarily globally the Integra Type R prices will be affected, although, you know, again, we might see pressure because, like I said, there's always a ripple effect, right? So anyway, that's the total from what they've highlighted. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what cars, particularly classics, particularly modern classics, have you seen that have either gone up a lot recently or have gone down against expectations recently. Catch you all in the next video. Check this out, guys. It's my book. It's my first novel, and it's written for car fans like you. It's a fun political action thriller. It's full of cool cars and spectacular action. Get your copy now at Amazon.com.